Good day, one and all. My name is Bruce Montgomery, and thank you for joining me on this edition of Technology Access Television. Well, you know, everybody needs a role model. The role models are where we find them. And in a city like Chicago that has so many legendary stories and legendary communities, it would be a shame if we didn't develop a whole new perspective on this place we call home. And my guest today is about to rewrite the record books of this city by going into each community and unearthing the new role models that exist. You know, we all know about the history, but history will only get us so far. We need some folks we can lay our hands on today that are making a difference in each and every community, all 77 communities of this place we call Chicago. And I'm glad that he's on this mission, and I'm glad to give him some time on this show because you need to know him and he needs to know you. My guest today is Jamal Cole. Jamal, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, Mr. Montgomery. Thanks for having me.
I'm glad for you to be here. And you've got a company called Role Model Movement.
Yes, sir.
That's your company?
Yes, sir.
You started it?
Yes, sir.
What made you come up with that company?
Well, I wanted to do a series of initiatives each year that would inspire youth to dream bigger than their surroundings. Mm-hmm. And I was always inspired by a few role models in my community growing up, like my father being one. And I wanted to give back once I graduated college, so that's why I started Role Model Movement.
That's very good. And I heard about you because you started this in my old neighborhood where I grew up, the neighborhood of Chatham.
Yes, sir.
And we were getting together at an entrepreneur's business there, Flex Coffee.
Yes.
And I came out and I said, well, who's this talking about Chatham? What do you know about Chatham? Let me go out there and see what this young man is talking about. And how did you come to start this in the Chatham community?
Well, thank you for I want to carry on the tradition you created in Chatham. So I interviewed 35 residents and said, what did you guys do back in the 60s and 70s to create this great community? And they said, Jamal, we knew each other. The business owners knew each other. So I wanted to rekindle that spirit of community organizations. And that's why I decided to move to what they say is Cosby land in Chatham. So.
Well, it was a great experience. So many wonderful things happened in that community.
Yeah.
But also, I kind of felt I was a little different because I moved from the west side to the Chatham area when I was very young,
yeah.
but I still had roots back on the west side. So
Okay.
I used to go back there with my father who had a business on the west side on Madison Street, and I would go back. And so I felt like I had one life on the west side and one life on the south side.
Yeah.
I never understood how these people, you know, people didn't really connect and people didn't know each other. And people say, oh, you know, that's some south side stuff or that's some west side stuff. I'm like, hey, man, they're great people on both sides of town. And so because of having that kind of two sides to my youth, I said, well, I can't cut my friends loose on the west side. Those are my boys. Those are my girls. I got to hang. And the same thing. So I always wanted to travel. But I always was shocked about people who said, hey, man, if it's not about Woodlawn, I don't know nothing about it. If it's not about Roseland, I don't know nothing about it. I said, there's really people in Chicago that don't know anything about these other neighborhoods. And I think you found that same thing out.
Yes, sir. I mean, we're all interconnected. It's not 77 different cities. This is one city. So what happens in Roseland should matter to the people in Edgewater. It just should. If a school closes on the south side of Chicago, it should matter to people in Wicker Park. So I want to create this aura of one Chicago as opposed to 77 different community areas in Chicago.
Now, how long ago did you come up with the idea for this concept?
It had to be about close to a year ago. I was speaking at Cook County Juvenile Detention Facility, and I asked the inmates there, I said, hey, has anybody ever been to the top of the Willis Tower? And nobody had been. I said, has anyone been downtown Chicago? Nobody had been downtown Chicago. So I thought I'd do the same. I'd ask the same questions at the high schools I speak at, and I kept finding out that no one has been downtown Chicago. Their entire worldview has been shaped by their few blocks or their hood, and I wanted to help them take ownership of the city. And so that's how the idea of my block, my hood, no, it's our city. That's how that came about.
So then something occurred to you to do the interviews and produce a book.
Yes, sir.
Did you say, I'm going to start out doing a book?
Yeah.
And then you said, well, maybe I'll do a book about Chatham, but then I could do a book or a story or interviews about each of the 77 communities.
Yes, I released a book about the history of Chatham about last year, and I put it in the local grocery stores and the local gas stations, and it was able to pick up a buzz. And you know, I love sitting in parks and writing about what I see and what I hear. That's the type of, I plagiarize reality. That's how I write. So 100 years later, you'll be able to say that's what Chatham was like. But yeah, so I'm all about diversity. Say Chicago is the most segregated city in the country. I think diversity transcends all doubts, and I want to encourage people to travel. So I said, let me go to other communities, interview local residents, promote local businesses, and find out what makes these community areas unique. And so the best way I can do that is a web series for 3 to 5 minute clips per community area.
Wow.
And then I'll write a book about the entire experience. So,
Okay,
yes,
okay. So you've got a whole script, if you will,
Yes, sir.
ready to roll out of doing these interviews. And now tell me about this web series. What will the web series look like when you start? Have you started to produce some episodes already?
We're starting the 16th of this month.
Okay.
And we're going to be starting in Edgewater. So the clips will be about, in Edgewater, we're going to start with a local coffee shop, and it's called Kitchen Sink, and they do a lot of community activism work through the coffee shop. So we'll start there. In the afternoon, Edgewater has a big African community, so,
That's right,
so
yeah.
I'll be able to learn more about African foods and eat African foods and African cultures, and they'll show me around. And then throughout the later part of the afternoon, there's a big LGBT community in Edgewater, and there's also a library there. So I'll sit down with one of the directors. So I want to highlight I don't want to talk about the deficits communities have. I want to highlight the positive things that these communities have and kind of make them interesting for people to want to visit them.
So you're really a digital media, multimedia content creator. You're creating conversations with folks. You're videoing these things, you're documenting them, writing them down, and then you're turning them into both e-books and printed books, as well as then you're putting it on the internet.
Yes, sir. My master's degree is in internet marketing.
Okay.
And so this is kind of a marketing tool, but it's so much more. I get to learn. The communities are my classroom, so I'll be able to learn from people in the communities and create a book about the experience. And when anybody knows anything about writing books, you need to expand your target audience, and this is a great way to do that, and I'm looking forward to it.
Well, another way that I heard about the work that you were doing was you decided to get the word out, but also raise some capital.
Yes, sir.
So that you could take this to the next level.
Yeah.
And you got involved in something that there's a lot of buzz about right now, this whole notion of crowdfunding.
Yes, sir.
Where you put your ideas out there and people hear about your ideas, and if they think it's a good idea, they can invest in what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
How did you find out about crowdfunding?
I was out in LA at a conference for
Okay.
young business leaders, and they talked about Kickstarter, and that's the crowdfunding website that is garners the most attention nowadays. And yeah, so they said you can have people that you don't even know support your idea, and you know, Barack Obama was able to raise millions of dollars
That's right.
with less than $10 donations. So I figure if I have a great idea, I can do the same thing. And Kickstarter was the best tool or one of the best tools to utilize them.
Now, did you try a Kickstarter crowdfunding campaign before the one that you did that I saw, or was that the first one that you did?
That was the first one that I did. I was
Okay.
just prepared. I made sure before launch that I actually had my marketing materials together. I made sure I had my email list already ready with internet email marketing tools. All of those were already ready. I kind of knew how I wanted to go about it. The videos were ready. The t-shirts were ready. So when I hit the launch button, I was actually prepared to launch.
And then you were getting this idea of raising the money to kickstart your business.
Yes, sir.
And at the same time, the city of Chicago was saying, well, hey, let's round up some folks that are trying to do this type of crowd capitalism.
Yes, sir.
And so they found you at the same time you were getting ready to launch your own campaign.
Yes, sir. They reached out to me and they said, hey, we think this is a great idea. You're going to be promoting local businesses throughout Chicago. We want to get you on a curated page to highlight what you're doing, and hopefully that'll help you raise more money. And of course, I was going to say that's a great idea. I want to raise as much as I can, and they've been tremendously helpful, as well as Melinda Kelly, the executive director at Chatham Business Association. She's been great introducing me to business owners in the Chatham area.
So this is something, you know, and I'm so glad you described the backstory on this, because people hear these terms, crowdfunding, they think they can just get out here and get a website and do a YouTube video and all of a sudden sit back and wait for the checks to come in to PayPal.
Yeah.
But it's not that easy.
No, sir.
You've got to have a complete game plan. So you said one thing real important. You said, I had my mailing list.
Yes.
I had who I was going to tell about it.
Yes.
I had some people who had committed to sign up and put some money down that first day.
Yes.
So that when people came there, they would see that somebody had already gave me a little bit,
Exactly.
and maybe they would encourage you to give me some more.
Yes, Mr. Montgomery, I woke up every day over the last month at 3 in the morning or 3:30, and I was up emailing folks already. I was emailing all of my Facebook friends individually,
Okay.
asking them for money.
All right.
I took advantage of being at the Bud Billiken parade, and I was able to be on the float with Cook County Clerk Dorothy Brown. She was definitely very influential and helpful.
Wow.
And so just, if you're passionate about what you're doing, you're gonna organically build these relationships that can help turn your passion into a profession. So.
Well, it is no doubt that there is a lot of money in the world,
Yes.
a lot of money in the universe,
Yeah.
a lot of money in our neighborhood.
Yeah.
And when people see people doing good things, what the crowdfunding does is allow people to say, hey, I like what that guy's doing.
Yeah.
And, I can spend $10 on lunch. I can spend $10 on Starbucks.
Yeah.
Let me send him 10. Let me send him 20.
Yes.
And so just like you said about Barack Obama, which is a lot of times I don't think we really appreciate what Barack really did in this instance
Yes.
of this crowdfunding. Because it was one thing when he ran for the president the first time and raised the money he raised, but the second time around, everybody knew it was coming.
Yeah.
They were stacked up. They were like, oh no, he's not going to happen again.
Yeah.
And he outdid him again.
Yes, sir.
With a very effective internet marketing, online marketing, using all the social media tools. But it was crowdfunding at the top.
Yes, sir.
That's exactly what he did, as well as some people obviously wrote some big checks,
Yeah.
but a whole lot of people wrote all kinds of checks, and he outraised the Cook brothers, Koch brothers, whatever their name is, and did his thing.
Yeah.
And so now this is a lesson, and you picked the ball right up, and you got some money into your coffers so you can run your business.
Oh yeah, the majority of my donations came from $25 donations, and I was able to raise nearly $11,000 in 3 weeks. So it was a blessing. I would tell young entrepreneurs, when you go out telling people about your project, make sure you don't go out there with $250 flyers or $500 flyers. Go get the people that are going to donate $5 and $10, because that's where the majority of your support will come from.
That's very, very good. Well, where can people go to see your project, your site, your ebook? What's your website and your information?
My website is 3mchicago.com. So that's where you can go find out information about the web series. Once a week, for the next 77 weeks, I'm going to be out there, all 77 communities in Chicago. Each week, there'll be another episode. You can also find T-shirts at 3mchicago.com.
Very, very good. Very good. And how important was social media to the success of just everything that you've been doing? A lot of people spend a lot of time on Twitter and Facebook and all that kind of stuff. Were you able to leverage that in ways that made a difference in your business success?
Yes, sir. I think it is definitely helpful, but you cannot rely on it totally. You need to get out there and put the foot to pavement and meet people. The majority of my donations came from people that I had physically met. Facebook and Twitter are great tools to amplify your message, but you still need to get out there and meet people and make sure you're having a conversation in person, because that's how they'll donate money.
I'm so glad you're saying that, and that's why it was so wonderful to meet you over at Flex Coffee, because when people can put a face and a person and shake somebody's hand and hear that story firsthand,
Yes.
that's very different than watching it on YouTube.
Yes, sir.
Or somebody saying something on Facebook. And this is what community is all about.
Agree.
And that's why I say that when we talk about community development is a real thing,
Yeah.
involving real people in real life.
Yes.
And maybe some other places or other communities can, get off on just Twitter conversation. But in our community, people want to get out and they want to make it a real live experience. And so I think that you bring both of that worlds together, because it's about the smartphone, it's about the iPad, it's about the website, it's about the coffee shop.
Yes, sir.
But really it's about changing people's direct experience, because when people meet you coming into their neighborhoods, they're going to say, hey, that guy's really interested.
Yeah.
And he really cares about what I'm talking about. And I want to tell him something. I want him to know something. And then he's helping me spread my story over the other 77 communities of Chicago.
Definitely. For a long time, I stood downtown at State and Adams, and I just sold my books in front of Foot Locker.
Oh, really?
Yes, sir. Because I'd meet, you're right in the middle of everything. It's like, I call it the river, because you meet people from the north side, the south side, and the west side. They all converge, or it's like a confluence where they meet at. And I stood right there and sold so many books. But the point is that when you actually get to meet somebody, you get to hear their story, and you get to change their perspective experientially, as opposed to just watching it on the media or YouTube.
Now, talk a little bit in the time that we have left. Obviously, you're very passionate about what you're doing. You're all fired up.
Yeah.
But you've also had to put, it's not just about you. You've had to put a team together, because just like here, I could be talking in front of the camera, but it's got to be somebody behind the camera
yes.
to make sure the whole thing goes down.
Yes,
have you been able to round up a posse
yes,
and
sir.
get you a team
Yeah.
that says, hey, let's get out here and do this? What kind of people have you been able to draw to this experience with you?
Yes, sir. Well, I don't make video or edit video, so I have to have experienced friends that have experience in that field do it with the Final Cut Pro. So my friend Will Thwaites, he directs all of the My Block, My Hood, My City web series. My friend Anthony Evora, he usually handles our Twitter. He usually handles our Facebook and social media. And I'm out there doing the groundwork and meeting people. So
that's really, really good. I do a lot of business coaching and counseling for the work that I do with SCORE here in Chicago. And I tell people all the time that the businesses that I see becoming successful, those are the ones that have established good teams.
Yes, sir.
So much of people think that entrepreneurism is just rugged individual. I got to be the CEO, the CFO, the CMO. But you better go CO somebody to get on your team.
Yes, sir.
And build the team. Be a coach. Get people around you. Like you say, your friend who probably knows that Final Cut, you say, hey, man, I don't know how he does all that, but I know he gets it done.
Exactly.
That's the talent that's in our community, waiting to come out of the basements and the apartments and out of the schools and out of the colleges. All these kids coming out of the schools and working in Starbucks. That doesn't mean they don't have 15 other skills that they could be doing. So anybody that you meet is a potential partner, is somebody that could add value to what you're trying to do. And it's so good to see you bring a team consciousness to this role model movement that you're establishing.
Thank you, I appreciate it. And they could even live in different cities. My friend Fola Orokunle, the world is so small with social media, he's able to help out role model movement from Milwaukee. So you can, as long as you're just in touch with your team on a daily or weekly basis, you can be successful. And no, it's not all about me, Jamal Cole. A lot of times people see me in the news or in the media and they say, hey, you're doing all this by yourself, but I cannot do it without the help of my friends and without the help of people like you. I really do appreciate your guidance and wisdom, because I can learn from you and overcome whatever obstacles are in my way.
Now, you said one of the things that motivated for you to do this is that you were going into high schools and you were going to our correctional facilities. Are you still doing that?
Yes, sir. I volunteer under the guidance of Florida Turner. She's the director of volunteer services at Cook County Juvenile Detention Facility.
Okay. So, and why is that so important to have people from the outside come in and do the kind of mentoring and exposing and the stuff that you're talking about in a facility like that?
Just changing people's worldview. You'd be surprised how many perspectives have been created or worldviews have been shaped by 2 or 3 blocks. I can share my experiences with them and they can see that there's no secret to my success. I'm a hard worker and I have a good attitude. If you have a great attitude and a good work ethic, you can make anything happen. And I think they just need me to come there and reinforce that. And I actually am inspired by going to speak to those guys, because some guys sleep on the red line or blue line and still get up and go to school. It's phenomenal.
It certainly is. Well, I think you're phenomenal, and I think role model movement is the right movement at the right time. Jamal Cole, if you want to check out what he's doing, what's your website again?
My website is 3mchicago.com.
3mchicago.com. Hey, that's a big deal in our city, because Chicago's a big city with 77 communities. And if you pay attention to 3m.com and what Jamal Cole is doing, you'll know what's going on in each one of these. There's going to be webisodes. You can see it on your smartphone. Wherever you are, you're probably going to see this young man, because he's going to be moving from one side of town to the other, bringing us closer together, elevating our consciousness so we can really take community where it needs to go, to the next level, being a full resource for all participants and all citizens in this city. I want to thank Jamal Cole for being my guest today, and I want to thank you for sticking around with Technology Access Television. My name is Bruce Montgomery.